run up.
Welcome to Journey to Joy Live, a podcast to promote wellness, resilience, and inspire joy. Be empowered to balance your mental, physical, financial, aspirational, and social health while providing mental health awareness and breaking down the stigma of mental illness in the Black community. I'm your host, Dr. NJoy, and I'm here to help you transform life's challenges into opportunities for joy. Let's begin the journey together.
May the joy be with you.
That part. All right. Welcome, everyone. We are in episode 96 of Journey to Joy Live. May the joy be with you, conquering stress with joy and wellness. And I have an amazing guest here, Dr. Anisa Shomo. Thank you for joining me.
Yes. So you want me to tell people about myself?
Exactly.
Okay.
Go ahead and tell people about yourself.
So I'm a family medicine physician in Cincinnati, Ohio. I've been practicing for 10 years. I also trained in geriatrics as well. So I'm really passionate about trying to help people get to a geriatric age from babies all the way to 100. I have one of my favorite patients is 98 years old and she walks into my office and forgets her cane.
Does she drive there?
Not usually. Her family brings her, but she comes in by herself. She's completely with it. So that's part of, why I do a lot of what I do, because I say, trying to get everybody happy and joyous until their later days.
Exactly. That's the key. That's the key. Well, thank you so much. So I not only have, for those watching online, I not only have Dr. Anisa Shomo, I have a live audience here because we are live in Cincinnati. Thank you for coming here. I'm here for the Flying Pig this weekend for my 41st half marathon and decided to have a book launch wellness event / live podcast. So why not? All right. So we're really talking about, joy, that we have joy within us no matter what. It's May 1st, Mental Health Awareness Month. May the 1st be with you. May the 4th be with you. All the things. Any Star Wars fans out there? Well, that's what it's from. It's from Star Wars, but you obviously a Star Wars fan, right?
So my husband is. So I am a Star Wars fan by proxy. And so I don't know if everybody knows the Star Wars Day is May 4th, and they say May the 4th be with you. And
Instead of May the 4th
be
with you.
And I actually was raised as a Muslim. So I don't know if people know in Islam, when people say Assalamu alaikum, they're saying peace be with you.
Oh.
So it's kind of like peace be with you, joy be with you, all of it, right?
All the things. So the key behind that, and I'm always talking about joy. I mean, that's my namesake. My private practice is NJoy Live. Obviously, we're on Journey to Joy Live. And I'm always talking about how joy is within you, and you actually have power in your joy despite your circumstances. And I talk about this a lot too, but never to you all. So I'm going to tell you all that there's a book called The How of Happiness. And she talks about that 40% of our happiness we actually have control over by what we think and what we do. But what's the other 60%, right? The other 60%, 50% of that is a genetic set point. Apparently, we all just have this genetic set point that gets us to a certain level of happiness. And the last 10% is life circumstances. So a lot of times we're working on a particular life circumstance like marriage or being a parent or a certain job or a certain amount of money in order to bring happiness. But that's 10% of our happiness. Mm-hmm. So when you go back to the first 40%, whoa, that's a lot that you have control over as far as how you think and what you do. So what do you think about that?
I mean, yeah. So for me as a family doctor, so I tell people I do a lot of what I call mind and body work. That's what we do in family medicine. We're trying to help people heal their bodies, also help them heal their minds. And we know that we can't really heal their bodies until we heal their minds, right? And so for me, I say part of that is a lot of grief counseling, right? Because I think that grief is really, really, really a huge, I call them joy jackers.
Oh, yeah.
Grief is a joy jacker, right?
Yeah.
But also, a lot of times it's like the grief, but it's like the things on top of the grief, right? So I do a lot of just trying to tease out the details of okay, so that 10% of life circumstances that you're dealing with, what about it makes it feel so heavy? What about it makes it feel maybe 50%, right? And trying to really unpack that. And for a lot of people, it can be they don't feel supported
right.
by either their home, partners, or the fact that, they don't have anybody in their home life that's supporting them.
Mm-hmm.
Because, we need community. Community is so important. I say that humans are pack animals, right? Like
connection.
Yeah, we really need each other. And so a lot of people are in isolation. And so that can be contributing to that, why it feels so heavy. The other piece is some people may be surrounded by people, but they may be the wrong people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
so they still feel unsupported. Because they don't listen. Like, I literally had a patient one time tell me her grandmother died and everybody was doing what we call the trauma Olympics, where you're like, oh, my grandma died. And they said, oh, well, that happened. Well, this happened to me and I'm about to get evicted and such and such.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I wasn't trying to be in trauma Olympics with you. I just wanted to feel supported in that moment. And so that's, people literally pay me money. So she was like, I'm just got to go see Dr. Shomo because I want to talk about my grandmother and you're not listening. And therapy is expensive. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times people use family doctors, and we do actually have a therapist in our office. So I generally refer people to our therapist. But, a lot of times I'm really that initial point of somebody saying, hey, I just really need somebody to listen to me right now and get an appointment. And then I can listen to them in that moment, see if I need to have them come back in a couple weeks and that sort of thing. But I will tell you that that's really like a lot of my job is like problem solving. Why does it feel so heavy?
Yeah, and that just shows that about the trauma Olympics. You really have to watch who you're surrounded by, because like certain friends can just literally drain you. And maybe that's just not your friend where you get the girlfriend therapy, because girlfriend therapy is real, where you help each other out, you go on a girls trip and you feel fulfilled because you're around that person. But if you feel drained, maybe don't spend a lot of time around them. So, and you also talked about why does that 10% feel so heavy? And a lot of it is the psychiatrist. And a lot of it, of course, I'm going to say, is how we think, right? A lot of us have a PhD in negative thoughts, where we are just so used to just thinking negatively. It was somebody I called out just now. They were trying to do something back there, and they were just like, oh, you point to yourself. She said, oh, I'm so LD. I'm like, don't say that to yourself. It's okay. And we're so fast to criticize ourselves. So we're so fast to criticize ourselves on something simple, and then something heavy comes up, then what we gonna do? And then somebody else is criticizing ourselves, and that's just validating what we already feel. But if you're used to having those positive thoughts, then you can kind of like fight back with those circumstances. Right.
And the other thing is, some things are going to feel heavy. Like if you're really close to your grandmother and they died, that is going to feel heavy. And a lot of times, like for me, I talk a lot about balance and joy and pain. And you can do that all in the same day. But you can also have a day where you're just like, nope, I'm not doing joy today. I'm only going to do pain. I'm laying in my bed and I'm going to watch TV and I'm going to, I'm a little hormonal right now. And I was kind of feeling like that today. Like, I just want to watch TV and cry all day, So we have to, it's okay to have all the emotions. You don't want to minimize people's emotions, but you want to try to figure out how to tease out, like, why does it feel like a burden,
Yeah. I mean, it's okay to not be okay, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
It is okay to not be okay. And especially we're talking about grief, trauma, whatever it is, if you need to take whatever time you need to, stop doing the certain things that you usually always do, the daily things, that's okay, right? But we don't want to like be away from life for years and years. So at a certain point, we want to get okay. And the way we do that is enter our journey to joy by therapy or social network, whatever that is that helps you get back to your joy. So it's very important. So let's get to the question. So in your work, how do you encourage women to prioritize wellness, not just survival, but for joy, especially when they're overwhelmed, caregiving, and in crisis? So how do we actually prioritize our wellness despite those things?
I honestly give people an assignment. I teach. Part of my job is I teach medical students. And so the teacher in me wants to give people homework, right? And I feel like as the word doctor actually means teacher. So as doctors, we're good at giving people homework too, but especially as a teaching physician. So I will often give people assignments for, trying to take, I say, you gotta just figure out how to carve out time for yourself, right? So I talk a lot about coping skills, like trying to balance coping skills and wellness. And so for me, I try to tell people, try to figure out how to get 10 minutes for yourself in a day. So for me, what that looks like, especially when I'm in the office, is I literally close my laptop, leave my phone at my desk, go into the lunchroom and shut the door so I don't hear them on the phone outside of the lunchroom, and sit and eat in silence for 10 minutes. And so just little things like that, because we're so distracted on our phones all the time. We're eating distracted, and we just never have like a moment to really just like breathe. So I'm like, take 10 minutes, take a 10-minute breather for yourself, right? So try to figure out what that looks like for you. And then beyond that, take a day off. So there's a book called The Blue Zones, 9 Lessons for Living Longer. It's by a man named Dan Buettner. And he actually went, so as a geriatrician, I'm like, 9 lessons for living longer. Let's do it. How am I supposed to advise my patients? And so they, studied these different cultures. It's kind of like an anthropology study of like, what do the people who live to be over 100 and who are thriving over 100, like riding horses at 100. What are they doing?
Wow.
Yeah, they actually made a Netflix special about it called Living to 100, and then it's literally a man on a horse, and he's like, I'm looking for such and such, and he's like, that's me. So how to get to be a geriatric person and thriving. And so one of the biggest things in there is just rest. We don't do enough rest. And so like they had a Blue Zone in the US, and it's in Loma Linda, California. I don't know if you all have ever heard of Loma Linda, California, but one of the biggest things that they do is their 7-day Adventists. And then 7-day Adventists take the Sabbath seriously. You have to have a day of rest. And so, I don't practice religion, but I think that we can take different things from religion. Like I was raised a Muslim, so you're supposed to pray 5 times a day. That's really a meditation. So that's 5 meditations a day, right? And you move and that sort of thing. And so the 7-day Adventists, they make sure they prioritize having a day off for rest. And so that kind of thing of take 10 minutes for yourself at least every day, take a day off every week, and then take a weekend, go somewhere, go do something, take a weekend away from whatever your duties are, do that, and then schedule vacations. A lot of people just don't schedule enough rest.
I love vacations.
Yes. So just trying to figure out how to schedule rest breaks, because I feel like that's where the real healing happens, and that's really where you get to just like collect yourself,
I mean, it seems like there's levels to our self-care, because you mentioned like the day-to-day ones that you could do for a brief minute, where you do like a mental reset for 10 seconds, or I might, between patients, I might go outside and catch some sun. There's those little things that you need to do throughout the day. And then there's like, oh, I'm gonna plan this whole trip, right? Some people think of self-care as like this luxury, I gotta have a whole spa day and spend money. Sure, do those things if you can, but there's the small things too. So there's levels of like the little ones you're going to do daily. There's some weekly. There's some like quarterly or something like that. So yeah, that's some good stuff. Thank you. And I was laughing to myself because you're talking about how to live to 100. I remember in my grandma's house, she had this little placard or sculpture that said how to live to be 100. And then when you open it, it said live to be 99 and be very careful for a year. Well, that's helpful. So I'm not going to try to insert a joke from Star Wars, Luke, I am your father. I guess that is the joke. But anyway, let's talk about our fathers. So we both lost our fathers. Dr. Shomo a few weeks ago, mine a few years ago. And, my father was a huge Star Wars fan. I didn't see all of them. I was going to say 6 episodes. I think there's way more than that. But I saw a few of them, and he almost yelled at my husband because he never had watched Star Wars. So he's just like, I don't know if I want you to marry this man because he don't know Star Wars. So anyway, I feel
that's like me. That's how literally my husband and my best friend from college were like appalled that I had never seen it. And so they were having a discussion about how to educate me about Star Wars.
Got a whole, you redeem yourself because you have a whole, this was your idea, you have a whole event named after Star Wars. So I feel like I'm dedicating this to him, and I feel like I'm dedicating my brand to him because he said all the time that I named you Joy, I named you your middle name, so I feel like my whole brand is dedicated to him. So anyway, we're going to get into grief, right? And, you can have traumatic grief, regular grief, whatever the grief is, you don't have to name it. And I literally had a patient the other day tell me he lost his wife 6 months ago. And he said, I'll just get over it. I'm like, says who? Who says you need to get over it? No, so there's no deadline to grief. Grief can look like anything. It can look like numbness, sadness, anger, whatever it looks like to you, acting out what depression, it could look using substances, it could look like anything to you, and there's no deadline. But what we would like to talk about is how you can incorporate the joy and the pain, which is what you brought up before. But tell us about your experience lately.
Yeah, so for me, as hard as I'm a pretty positive person. And so I haven't been probably as sad about it because for me, especially as a geriatrician, like I saw him declining. So it wasn't something that happened suddenly. And for me, honestly, I just feel like I've been grieving for like years because I saw him declining. But one of the ways that I always, take that emotion and was like, okay, well, my dad's declining. So like literally his birthday was 6 months ago in October. And I'm like, hey, Dad, he had been hospitalized kind of like back to back. I'm like, hey, Dad, I know you're not having like when he turned 70, we had a birthday party. I said, I know you're not turning 70 or 75 or nothing, but you're turning 73 and I'm proud of you. So we should have a birthday party. And he said, you know what? It might be my last one. Oh. We should do that. And so I did, I had a birthday party and like pretty much everybody was there, which I'm one of 9 siblings. And so like, I think everybody, there were 7 of us in the room, 7 siblings in the room, a lot of nieces and nephews. He was just really happy about that. So for me, I just think about like, how I used my grief over the past several years of seeing him decline and try to make, memories and capture moments. And so now I can look back at a lot of that stuff. Like, I'm just happy that he made it to his 73rd birthday. And then, just for me, it's just like, I just try to see a lot of positive stuff about it.
Yeah.
And it's the same with you. Like, I think about, my husband is not gonna like this story, but it's a really good story. I really try to see like what like the moments that remind me of him. So like today, like I said, I'm feeling a little hormonal. So I've been like crying off and on and laughing off and on all day. But this morning, one of the stories I was telling one of my colleagues this morning or this afternoon, I was sitting drinking coffee and my husband, I'm off work right now. I'm taking, bereavement leave. And so I'm sitting drinking coffee and my husband's getting coffee to take to work because he's, got to go to work. Mm-hmm. And he walks up to me and tickles me.
Oh,
and I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, are you going to work or why are you tickling me? Like, but it's just like he's walking by. He's like, tickle,
It's a husband thing to do.
Yes. And so like, but my dad, was 73, but he still would do that. He still like, if he just saw you sitting there and he felt like tickling you, he was going to tickle you. So I'm just like, so marry my dad. A lot of us do. My husband is so similar to my dad. So every time I see, him do something that just reminds me of my dad, or even me, like if what I said something to him, something crazy to him after that. Not like about him tickling me, but we just joke a lot. You know what I mean? So every time I tell a joke, or every time something happens, it reminds me of him. It just really gives me a lot of joy to just know that his legacy still lives. Yeah. I say it feels like the Lion King. Like he lives within me,
Yes. Yeah, it's always nice cherishing the positives. And I mean, it's not like you 100%, and you said that you usually think positively, and that's how it's made it a little bit easier for you. So that's good to hear. Yeah. But it's also not like it's 100% joy. I mean, we have our moments of pain. You said even today, but yet you're here now. I mean, if you don't mind, like what did you have to do mentally or physically to be here for these people, despite what you went through today?
Yeah. Honestly, for me, because I knew I had to come to this event, I didn't sit at home all day. I could have, but one of my our residency program director or program coordinator, mm-hmm. she was retiring today. Mm-hmm. So I sat and was sad for a little bit, and then I said, "Oh, I gotta go get dressed," So I went, got dressed and went to the event and saw a bunch of my colleagues, which everybody, of course, was walking up to me like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Yeah. And so just talking with them and just laughing and talking about all types of stuff, basically like distraction and getting out of your head, because we can be in our covers and stuck in our bed and in our head, and we create this world of grief and depression and all kinds of things. So when we get out and get distracted, it actually is helpful. Distraction is a coping strategy, as long as you're not distracting yourself doing something that's risky or something that's not healthy. So Yeah, so I basically just went to be around other people. Like I could have just stayed home and not went, but I was like, no, it'd be good to go be around other people and talk. We used to talk about politics, and of course that isn't always the best, but it's just good to
politics,
to right, you know, it's all happening. But it was just good to just have kind of like normal conversations with people about just, you know, the world and all that kind of stuff versus, well, yeah. Exactly.
Well, speaking of which, Dr. Shomo, you brought it up. I wasn't going to ask about it, but may the joy be with us. How do we do that in this political climate? Oh my goodness. To be honest, I'll be honest. You know, I have to protect my mental space anyway as a psychiatrist, so I don't watch the news. I get the news filtered through my husband, and actually some of my patients will tell me things, and I'll be like, I didn't really want to hear that, but thank you for letting me know that that's what Trump did today. And then even today, like listening to the radio, I was like, oh, okay. So anyway, yes. How do we?
I mean, for me, the way one of the biggest ways I've coped in times of like the stress is just trying to figure out what I can control.
Yeah.
And then a lot of advocacy. So like this morning I wrote a letter to the legislature because one of my colleagues, so I'm the president of Cincinnati Medical Association, which is the Black Doctors Association in Cincinnati. So it's it's the chapter of National Medical Association, which is the National Black Doctors Association. So one of my colleagues was like, you know, they're trying to take away Medicaid, and we got to write letters. And so she wrote a letter, and she wanted me to add. She brought it to our meeting, and I was telling her like, I grew up with all of the things. I'm like, a lot of the older doctors they didn't have all those programs, right? But I was born in the 80s, so I'm like, I went to Head Start, I had public K through 12 education, I went to public universities. I'm like, I had Medicaid as a child because there's like 9 of us, you know. Mm-hmm. We had food stamps sometimes, and, you know, all of the things that so I wrote a letter that said, you know, I benefited from all of these programs that were meant to uplift people out of poverty. I'm like, and my husband and I, over the past 10 years since I've been working, have paid over $1 million in taxes. Woo. So I thought that was the point of all of this.
Yeah.
But let me know if it's not. So, you know, just trying to do what I can to like help refocus people. Like, what are we doing here, people? You know, so just whatever I can do to advocate. And the other thing is just, I call it Operation Save Our Babies or Support Our Babies, because all of these medical students, they didn't ask for none of this, and you only go to like we were at SNMA. We were at SNMA for 4 years. SNMA is the student branch of the NMA. Yeah. So it stands for Student National Medical Association. But you're in it for 4 years. But those are the only years that you're in it. Yeah. So these are the 4 years that you're in SNMA, and they banned SNMA graduation and the Office of Diversity and all that sort of stuff. So that's the other thing too. I've been trying to just like focus on them, love on them, give them hugs, give them food, you know, talk to them, call them, all that sort of stuff. So for me, it's been, you know, on one hand, advocacy of like, what are y'all doing? On the other hand, it's like, I just got to hug my babies because I'm so sorry I got to go through this.
Yeah, that's really the advocacy, that's key. But just the things that you can control. And you went into advocacy, so that makes sense. That's something you can control. Maybe you can write letters. Maybe that works. Maybe it's not. I also thought about, you know, just focusing on yourself, right? So obviously there's a lot of people individually affected by this political climate. In fact, it impacted me myself individually. But anyhow, it's a matter of like maybe focusing on like your purpose and your self-care, right? All of this is about wellness and self-care, and is trying to distract yourself to help, because a lot of us, it is really working our mental illness. I mean, I've had bipolar patients get activated because of it, right? It's a lot of stress.
And anxiety. If you have anxiety, this is like the worst time.
What ifs? Activate the what ifs, right? Yes. Yeah. And so if you happen to have what ifs, like what do you usually what if about? Something negative. What if this bad thing happens? So when that comes, a strategy is to flip that. What if something good happens? And start to think about the good things. So that's what if something good comes out of this political stuff?
Right. No, and I honestly have been trying to think about that. Like, well, maybe people can, you know, better. I don't know. So I've been trying to balance it that way too, as well. You know, but it's just really been a hard time. But I think even in hard times, you still have to. I tell people you have to take breaks from the hard stuff, right? From the pain, and you have to figure out how to create joy, even just for a moment, because otherwise you just get too tired. If you just like let the pain pile up and pile up and pile up, it'll crush you. you know, so you have to take a break from it and figure out what you can do to feel okay in that moment. Whether it's, you know, I walk a lot, like I'll probably walk more than I run. I'm running right now because I'm training for this race, but I'll usually walk when I'm not training for races. So I box. That's a really good stress reliever.
Oh,
so I've been doing MMA training for like 2 years. So I went and punched bags yesterday.
Let out the tension. Well, I mean, that's why I feel like my running, I let out the tension too. Yeah. Whatever you do, work up your heart rate, you know, do something physically. I mean, that's what the NJoyNAL is about for those who came back and bought it, you know, working on your mental health, your physical health, financial health, because financial, that can be a stressor too. You act like your mental wellness is going well. Then something happened financially. Then this was like, whoa, what happened to that mental health, right? And then everything else could be going well. But if all of a sudden you feel unfulfilled with your life, your purpose, you could be a high achieving woman, all these degrees, but are you just going through the motions? Like, are you really doing what you really want to do? So focusing on your purpose is important. And then lastly, we already talked about like the social health and social connectedness. So like looking at all those categories of health are important. You want to tell everybody about Health is Love?
Yeah, so Health is Love, it started as my book. So I have another brand called Dr. Shomo Knows. So I was doing Dr. Shomo Knows. I was doing a lot of, you know, trying to combat misinformation, and then a pandemic happened, and I said, "Ooh, y'all doing a lot. I'm gonna go do something else." So I wrote Health is Love.
Makes sense.
It's a lot, y'all. It's a lot. So I had to take a break from that part of it. I still do it sometimes, but anyway. So part of, you know, as I was getting kind of toward the end of Dr. Shomo Knows, I was just really on this trauma-informed. I wanted people to know more about trauma-informed care because it really impacts our physical health. Because, you know, the traumas that we don't deal with, if we don't work through a lot of that, or just figure out how to be at peace with it, right? It really eats at you. So that mind-body work that we do as physicians, I basically wrote a book about it. I wrote a book that is half just trying to figure out, like, well, have you been traumatized? What kind of traumas have you experienced? How are you coping? What are your coping skills? Are they good coping skills, or do you feel like you could work on them? So that's the first half of the book. And then there's actually a forgiveness meditation in there too, because I feel like a lot of people really need to work on forgiving themselves and a lot of other people themselves, number one, because I think a lot of people hold a lot of shame about all types of stuff, about, you know, just all types of things that could have been different. So just trying to work on moving past some of those things. And then the second part of the book is what's called motivational interviewing. So that's what we do as family doctors often, is trying to, because, you know, like somebody might need to take their diabetes medicine or work on their healthy habits, or hypertension, that sort of stuff. So we do something called motivational interviewing as far as like, well, what is your goal? Do you feel motivated right now? Because if you don't feel motivated right now, then come back when you feel motivated, because it's hard to change when you're not feeling motivated.
You're right, because it can be frustrating when you have so many medications to take.
Right. So yeah, so it's basically just like this kind of activity we do as primary care doctors that a lot of people don't realize that we're doing. Some people do, but a lot of people don't know.
You don't tell people you're doing motivational interview. You can't. It won't work if you tell them. Right.
So just trying to assess, you know, are you ready to change? And then if you are ready to change, what are you going to be your action steps? You know, how are you going to prepare for that change? And then, you know, when you fall off, I call it fall off the wagon, what are you going to do to get yourself back on there? Who can help you? So it's really kind of an exercise, and going through that exercise that we do in motivational interviewing.
Awesome. So for those in the audience, you can find Health is Love right back there. You can find the NJoyNAL back there. But for those of you who are watching live, you can find the NJoyNAL on my website at drnjoylife.com. And where can we find Health is Love?
On my website, it's healthislove.co.
Awesome. Also, what's a hidden secret is that we both were actually going to launch brand new books today, but we took our time. So my new book coming out is actually available on my website for pre-order. So it's almost there. It's called Inspire Joy for the Wife, Mom, Boss, How to Balance It All Without Losing Yourself. So you can pre-order that for $12.49. And did you want to mention your book that's coming?
So I haven't finished writing it yet because I had a lot of stuff going on this year. So in addition to my father dying, my auntie died. My dad's sister died in January. So I was working on it like December, January, and then she died, and then I had to help plan her memorial with my cousins. And she wanted my auntie was extra like me, so so she wanted to have 2 funerals. So she had one in California and one in Cleveland. So I had to help my cousins plan the Cleveland funeral. So it's just been a lot going on.
Yeah.
So the plan for that book is Unwrap Your Joy, Balancing Joy, Coping Skills, Balancing Joy, Pain, Coping Skills, and Wellness.
Ooh, it's all about balance and joy. That's awesome. I mean, she went through a lot. She done told, and we all, I'm sure everybody has a story, and then, we hold it together and all those things, but you don't have to hold it together if you can't. So it's okay to get therapy. Yeah. It's okay to see that doctor, because sometimes that's the first person you see is your family medicine doctor. Yeah. Make sure you see somebody, and it's okay to get medication if you need it.
Yes, for sure. And it's, I do a lot of other stuff too. Like I do acupuncture, I do some herbals too, like ashwagandha I've been doing lately. So there's all types of stuff out there too that I just tell people, that we're all one big experiment. I know people don't like the word experiment and research and all of that, but that's what life is. Life, every day you go and you say, well, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this, or I'm going to try that. Yeah. So I'll tell people, you got to try the biggest, because I know for me as a family doctor, like people, you can give people advice, and a lot of your advice is based off of your own experience of what you tried, right? But and I get advice from my patients. One of my patients told me that, like, I've been taking probiotics for years, because one of my patients told me that she tried it and it helped a lot with acid reflux symptoms. So yeah, so there's a lot of different types of treatments that exist, like even Reiki and hypnosis. I know a psychiatrist who only does hypnosis. Whoa. He stopped using medications and only does hypnosis.
That's nice.
Yeah. So there's all types of stuff out there. Yeah. And it just depends on the person. Like just trying to, in family medicine, a lot of our colleagues do acupuncture. So I was just familiar with it. And I was like, somebody was like, oh, so I knew about it, but I never had a reason to use it. So somebody was like, oh, you should try acupuncture. So I did it and I love it. So there's all types of stuff that really kind of help you figure out, like that 10% of like, why does it feel so heavy, right? So for me, acupuncture has really helped a lot with helping it not feel so heavy.
You'd be surprised what helps.
Yeah, so it's just
doesn't hurt to try.
Yep.
Yeah. So I always end every episode asking my guests what your personal journey to joy has been like. I mean, I feel like you've given all that, but anything else to share about your personal journey to joy?
Honestly, for me, it's been while we both talk about balance, is because we know as physicians it's like a bunch of chaos. People have no idea how chaotic it is to be a physician. I say it's like, it's just a lot. And so for me, I think I had to learn a lot about prioritizing myself, and really just balancing, like, yeah, you have this big job with these big responsibilities, but you have to take care of yourself. And part of the reason why this what I'm doing with my dad hasn't felt probably as heavy is because I've done a lot of work over several years, because I'm a cancer survivor. So I got diagnosed with cancer in 2017, the end of 2017. So the past 7 years, I've really been on this journey for balance. Back then, 7 years ago, I was kind of like in this like work hard, play hard mode as a young person. I was 33 when I got diagnosed with cancer, right? So in my 20s and in my early 30s, it was like work hard, play hard, work hard, play hard. So then when I got cancer, I was like, oh, I'm gonna need a new strategy in life, like that didn't go where I wanted it to go.
The same strategies didn't work. Yeah.
So, and that's why I talk to people a lot about trauma-informed care, because I think that I didn't really deal with a lot of traumas. I was running away from a lot of traumas and like trying to outwork them and trying to outrun them and all types of stuff, just trying to do a lot of stuff. Just to kind of, like act like a lot of stuff didn't happen. And so I started just really trying to work on being more present and really just learning how to sit in that pain and really just being more in touch with your actual emotions. You know what I mean? I feel like I spent a lot of years running away from my emotions and really like not being connected with myself. Like I felt disconnected from myself. And so for me, I've been on this journey for 7 years to reconnect with myself, learn more like how I actually feel in a moment.
Self-awareness.
And I honestly feel like acupuncture helped me a lot with that.
That's really good.
Because I tell people, like, the first time I ever got acupuncture, I said I felt like it was like having a reset button pushed on you.
How often do you get it?
Usually at this point, I might go like every other month.
Oh, wow. So you go often. Nice. Okay. Might have to add that. First of all, thank you for being so transparent. I mean, this is how the healing starts with others. Is when you tell what's going on with yourself. And what you really are talking about is resilience, right? Yeah. You trained for this. I mean, a lot of us are runners in here. We're not just going to get into the flying pig on Sunday without training. We're training for it so we can finish that race. So whatever trauma might come, we're training for it when it comes to like positive affirmations or taking those mental resets, exercise, journaling, all the things that we need to do for our self-care. And when a new trauma or setback comes that you've never experienced before, then you had to kind of like, oh boy, let me change this strategy. You have to change it. But, life be life, and trauma is going to come. Challenges are going to come, but it's a matter of how we get back up from it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, that is a big piece of resilience. And then when you talk about like that 50%, like genetically, I get a lot of that from my dad and my auntie. They were both very resilient people. Ooh. And so, and humor is a big way that people get through a lot of stuff. So, I have a really funny family and that sort of stuff. Yeah. So, you just try to, have every time just try to learn something from it and try a new strategy, try a different path. But for me, it's really just been like learning how to prioritize myself is really like, I feel like you just get so caught up. You get so
giving to other people.
Yeah, you get caught up in a lot of stuff. You get caught up in giving to other, and this big, that's what I'm saying, like this is big career, like this big job, and then your family, and it's just so much. And I just feel like you lose yourself in all of that.
Yeah, and self-care is not selfish. It has the word self, but start focusing on the self stuff, self-grace, self-love, self-compassion, self-care. Those are important.
Yep. But you really have to take a journey like back to yourself too. Because I think that was one of the biggest things for me. Because it was just like, I had to ask myself, who am I? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like strip yourself naked of like, without this, without that, without a husband, without a job, without this, without that. Yeah. Who am I?
Ooh, that's right. Good. And so you get lost in those roles.
Yeah.
That's important. All right, I think we can go on and on and on. I really appreciate you. I mean, joy is resistance. Joy is within you. You have the force. So go on and be joyful. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now I'm talking because you guys aren't leaving right this second, but thank you for the live people online for tuning into this episode. So may the joy be with you. May the joy be with you. Mason, you can push in live. You can click in live on there. Yeah. Because we're still actively live until he pushes in live.
Thank you all for being
here. Any questions?
I was going to say, any questions? Any thoughts? Yeah.
This has been an NJoy Live production. If you're in a crisis, don't hesitate. Call, text, or chat 988 for immediate support. Please note, this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional treatment. If you're looking for therapy or medication management through NJoy Life, visit www.drnjoylife.com to request a consultation. I accept Aetna for Georgia residents, and out-of-pocket services are available for others. I'm licensed in Georgia, Florida, Michigan, Tennessee, Maryland, Wisconsin, New Hampshire, Illinois, Virginia, and Minnesota. Be sure to grab your copy of the NJoyNAL on Amazon for $39.08 to help you on your wellness journey. And remember, Journey to Joy Live is every Thursday at 7 p.m. Thank you for joining me. And until next time, may you continue to transform challenges into joy.